My wife through my phone. This text from your ex proves everything. I want a divorce. I said fine. Then I hired a PI and discovered she was sleeping with my ex, and it was all a setup. I filed for divorce and sent the evidence to her parents. They are now frantically calling me to mediate. I, 38 male, am still trying to wrap my head around this whole dumpster fire. It's been a wild ride, and not the fun kind. It all blew up about a month ago. I came home from work, pretty standard Tuesday. My wife, Angela, 35, was sitting on the couch, arms crossed, radiating ice. Before I could even ask what was wrong, she chucked my phone at my chest. Hard. It clattered to the floor, screen thankfully intact. Then, in a theatrical rage, she grabbed her own phone from the coffee table and slammed it down, shattering its screen. "This is your fault," she shrieked before pointing a trembling finger at my phone on the floor. "This text from Brenda proves everything," she seethed. Brenda is my ex from, like, a decade ago. Ancient history. The text on my phone read something like, "Last night was amazing. Can't wait to see you again, handsome. Same time next week." I stared at it, completely baffled. "Angela, what is this? I haven't talked to Brenda in years. This isn't real." Later, the PI, Mr. Scott, would find texts between Angela and Brenda, detailing how Angela waited for me to be in the shower, then used a burner phone to send that text to my phone, immediately deleting the evidence from the call log and the burner before discovering it, moments after I came out. "Oh, I'm sure," she scoffed. "I want a divorce, Eric. I'm done with your lies. 15 years together and this is how it ends? Over a text I never got, about a meeting that never happened?" The shock was there, but honestly, a weird kind of calm washed over me too. If she was going to believe this so easily after everything, my reply was short, "Fine." Something about her immediate jump to divorce and the theatrical phone destruction felt off. My gut screamed that this was more than just a misunderstanding. So the next day, instead of just moping, I did something I never thought I'd do. I hired a private investigator, told him the situation, asked him to look into Angela, and specifically any contact she might have had with Brenda, and how that text appeared. It took about 2 weeks. The PI, Mr. Scott, was thorough, and what he found? Man. Turns out, Angela wasn't just coincidentally finding the text. She and Brenda had been seeing each other for months. Months. The text, a complete fabrication, a setup they cooked up together. PI even got the details of the burner phone text maneuver to make me the bad guy, give Angela the excuse she wanted to leave, and probably take me to the cleaners in the divorce. Brenda, my ex, was helping my wife screw me over. The betrayal was a double whammy. The PI got photos of them together, dates, times, texts between them planning the whole thing. It was all there. My fine from 2 weeks ago solidified into a cold, hard resolve. I didn't confront Angela. What was the point? She'd already shown her hand. Instead, I took Mr. Scott's entire report, made a copy, and filed for divorce first thing Monday morning. Cited adultery with irrefutable proof of the affair and the conspiracy to fabricate evidence. Then I packaged up another copy of that report, photos and all, and couriered it to Angela's parents, Stephen and Helen. They always thought Angela was a saint, and I was lucky to have her. Not even 24 hours later, my phone started blowing up. Stephen, then Helen, then Stephen again. "Eric, we need to talk. Eric, there must be some mistake. Eric, you can't just do this. You need to come over. We can mediate. Work this out with Angela." Mediate? After that? I don't think so. I let it go to voicemail mostly, but the gist was clear. They wanted to play happy families and pretend their darling daughter hadn't orchestrated a massive deception. The rage is there, simmering under the surface, but mostly I just feel determined. She wanted a divorce, she's gonna get one, just not on her terms. Update 1 week later. Thanks for the comments on the original post, folks. Good to know I'm not totally out of line here. It's been an eventful week. So, Angela's parents, Stephen and Helen, didn't let up. After about the 10th call I didn't pick up, Stephen left a long, rambling voicemail. Started with how disappointed he was in me for being so hasty and unwilling to communicate. Then it shifted to how Angela is distraught and not herself, and how I clearly don't understand the pressure she's been under. Pressure to cheat and lie, apparently. He ended by saying I was destroying their family and that I needed to be a man and sort this out amicably with Angela, for everyone's sake. Translation: let her get away with it and probably pay for the privilege. Angela herself finally surfaced. Not with an apology, obviously. She sent me a barrage of texts from a new number, no surprise since she'd smashed her own phone in her tantrum. All caps mostly. How could you send that to my parents? You're trying to ruin my life. This is all your fault for driving me to this. Classic. Brenda only did it because you were such a bad husband. The mental gymnastics are astounding. Then came the call from Angela's sister, Anna. I always got along okay with Anna, thought she was more level-headed. Nope. Eric, you need to stop this. Angela is a wreck. Mom and Dad are beside themselves. What you did, sending that stuff, was cruel. Anna, I said, tiredly. Angela was sleeping with my ex and they faked evidence to frame me so she could divorce me. What part of that am I supposed to just ignore? She made a mistake. People make mistakes. Brenda is a bad influence. You're supposed to forgive. Think of all the years. She didn't just make a mistake, Anna. She orchestrated a deliberate setup. She chose this path. You're being vindictive. She needs support right now, not this onslaught. She'll get what's legally determined. Get, I replied. I've hired a lawyer. All future communication needs to go through her. Click. Speaking of which, I met with my lawyer, Miss Ruth. She's a shark, exactly what I need. Went through the PI report. Her eyes lit up. She confirmed that filing first with this kind of evidence was a smart move. Her main advice was to document everything and not engage directly with Angela or her family. All comms through legal channels. Fine by me. Angela is apparently staying with Brenda. Good riddance. I had the locks changed on the house. It's in my name, bought before the marriage, though Miss Ruth says she'll still try to make a claim on appreciation. The mediate calls from Stephen and Helen have slowed down, probably because I just sent a polite email with Miss Ruth's contact details. Feeling less raw shock now, more like a grim sense of purpose. This is a mess, but it's a mess I'm going to clean up methodically. Update 2, 3 weeks later. Alright, buckle up. The Entitlement Express has picked up steam and the dirty tricks have officially begun. So Angela, through her new lawyer, a real pit bull type apparently, formally requested emergency temporary spousal support. The amount she asked for was insane. Enough to fund her current lifestyle with Brenda, plus her legal fees, plus a little extra for her emotional distress. The petition painted me as a controlling monster who cut her off from her rightful money. Reminder, she had a part-time job for her own spending, the main finances were managed from my income, and there are no joint accounts to speak of. She claimed she was on the verge of homelessness, despite shacking up with her affair partner. Miss Ruth, my lawyer, just about laughed when she saw the request. Our response was swift. A big fat no on the exorbitant amount, countered with a much, much lower figure based on actual need, which, given she's living with Brenda and has some income, is minimal. We attached excerpts from the PI report, highlighting the premeditated nature of the affair, the setup, and the fabrication of evidence. We also pointed out that she was the one who initiated the separation based on a lie. Then came Dirty Trick 1, an anonymous tip to my HR department. Claimed I was using company time and resources for my divorce. Total BS, I've been super careful, and that I'd been aggressive and unstable in the office. My boss, thankfully, knows me pretty well and called me in for a chat. I calmly explained the basics of what was happening, assured him it was contained, and he said the complaint was vague and seemed malicious. HR did their due diligence, found nothing, and dismissed it. But damn, that was low. Trying to mess with my job? Ms. Ruth made a note, adds to the pattern. Dirty Trick 2, Brenda, the ex-turned homewrecker, decided to get involved directly. She started posting vague passive-aggressive stuff on social media, clearly aimed at me. Things like, some men can't handle a strong woman leaving their toxic clutches, and so glad my bestie is free from him. Tagging Angela in some of them. A clear attempt to rally public sympathy and paint Angela as the victim. Some of their mutual friends started liking and commenting supportive stuff. It's annoying, but Miss Ruth said to ignore it unless it becomes direct harassment or defamation. Angela's parents, Stephen and Helen, after being rebuffed by my lawyer, tried a new tactic, guilt trips via email. Long, rambling messages about the vows we took, forgiveness, how Angela is suffering enough from her mistake, and how my refusal to mediate is tearing everyone apart. Helen even threw in a line about how her health is suffering because of all this stress. Seriously. The PI also dug up a little more on Brenda. Turns out she has a bit of a history of this kind of drama, and she's not exactly financially stable. It seems she might have seen Angela, and by extension me, as a bit of a meal ticket. The court date for the temporary support hearing is next week. Angela will have to show up, look a judge in the eye, and explain why she deserves a mountain of cash after what she pulled. Ms. Ruth is confident. Me? I'm just tired of the games, but more determined than ever not to let them win. Every stunt they pull just reinforces that I made the right call. The final update, 7 months on. It's been about 7 months since the text that wasn't, and the world decided to go sideways. The divorce was finalized 3 weeks ago, and yeah, this is the last update. I'm done with this saga. The temporary support hearing was a trip. Angela showed up looking like a deer in headlights, Brenda hovering in the background of the virtual waiting room like a bad smell. Her lawyer tried to paint her as destitute and wronged. Ms. Ruth calmly presented the timeline, the PI report summaries, including the details of how the fake text was planted, the texts between Angela and Brenda, plotting the setup, and highlighted Angela's current living situation with Brenda. The judge was not impressed with Angela's dramatics. He asked her point blank why she didn't try to discuss her supposed marital issues with me before orchestrating a fake affair reveal and fabricating evidence. Her answer about being intimidated was weak, and the judge saw right through it. She got a minimal amount of temporary support, barely enough to cover her share of a cheap coffee, let alone her old spending habits. The judge even commented that her current predicament was largely of her own making. That was a small, satisfying win. The attempts to mess with my job dried up after the first failed attempt. I think they realized I had good standing there, and it wasn't going to be easy. The divorce proceedings themselves were a grind. Angela and her lawyer tried to drag everything out, contesting every little thing. They argued she deserved a huge chunk of my premarital assets due to emotional investment and sacrificed career opportunities. Her part-time Etsy shop selling knitted hats was hardly a booming career she put on hold for me. The real fireworks happened during discovery. Miss Ruth went deep. And oh boy did we find some interesting things. Angela, bless her cotton socks, wasn't just relying on Brenda's support. She had been siphoning small amounts of cash from my wallet for months before D-Day, and also had a credit card in her name that she'd told me was canceled years ago, racking up debt for essentials like spa days and new clothes, clearly prepping her exit strategy. It wasn't a fortune, but it showed a pattern of deceit that went beyond just the affair and the setup. The revenge, if you can call it that, was serving them with the unvarnished truth, legally and repeatedly. When it came to the final settlement negotiations, Ms. Ruth laid out all our cards. The detailed PI report on the affair, and the setup, including the deliberate planting of the text, Angela's pre-divorce financial shenanigans with the secret card and cash, Brenda's less-than-stellar background, and the clear evidence of their coordinated campaign to defraud me. Angela's lawyer tried to argue marital misconduct doesn't affect asset division significantly in this state. Miss Ruth countered that while true to a point, fraudulent conduct to initiate said divorce, the fabrication of evidence and an attempt to gain an unfair financial advantage absolutely does, and so does dissipation of assets, the secret card debt. The mediation was tense. Angela was there looking sullen. Brenda was not invited. Stephen and Helen tried to show up for moral support and probably to try and influence things, but Miss Ruth had them barred from the actual mediation room. They were furious, muttering about how unfair the process was. Facing the prospect of having all this aired in open court, including testimony from the PI and forensic accountants, Angela finally caved. The settlement, spousal support, none. Zilch. Nada. Her affair, the setup with fabricated evidence, and the hidden debt torpedoed that. The judge at the temporary hearing had already signaled his displeasure, and her lawyer knew a trial would be brutal. Assets. Since the house was premarital and I'd kept finances pretty separate, she wasn't entitled to much. She got a small lump sum, significantly less than she wanted, basically to just go away. It was less than what the secret credit card debt amounted to, which Miss Ruth made sure was factored in. Legal fees. Each paid their own. Given her stunt, I was happy not to be footing her bill. The aftermath? Angela is apparently still with Brenda, though I hear through the grapevine, Anna, who actually called to apologize to me a month ago, saying she finally saw the full extent of Angela's BS, that their blissful union is looking pretty rocky now, that the financial support from me didn't materialize, and Brenda is realizing Angela isn't exactly a high earner. They're apparently living in a tiny apartment, and Angela is having to work full-time at a retail job she hates. The calls from Stephen and Helen stopped completely after the mediation. I think the finality of it all and the undeniable evidence finally shut them up. They got the full picture of their daughter's actions, and it wasn't pretty. No apologies from them, but their silence is telling. I'm not gonna lie, the last 7 months have been draining and expensive. But getting that final decree was like a massive weight lifted. I kept my house, my job, my dignity. The quiet in my house is actually peaceful now. It wasn't about some grand theatrical revenge. It was about exposing the truth and ensuring that her actions had realistic, legal consequences. She tried to play a dirty game, and she lost. Badly. And that, honestly, is